So welcome to Storytelling Through Blogging. So the third of our series of webinars about every month. First one was all about the structure of telling a story. The second one was on storytelling through photography. And now we're focusing on blogging. So in this presentation we'll start off by looking at what is a blog. Then we'll ask the question why blog, what to blog about, and then how to get started, including things like choosing a blogging platform and actually how you set it up. So first of all, what is a blog? A blog can be, here's the definition of a blog. This is from the Oxford English Dictionary Online. A blog, a noun, a personal website or web page on which an individual records opinions, links to other sites, etc. on a regular basis. Or it can be a verb, to blog, to add new material or regularly update a blog, as in it's about a week since I last blogged. And the derivatives are a blogger, somebody who blogs. But the origin, this is interesting, it goes back to the 1990s and it's an abbreviation of weblog. So it was literally a kind of a log or a diary of people online on the web. But it's evolved much beyond that nowadays. A blog these days can be any of these things. It can be your online presence. It can be a representation of your personal brand, i.e. what you stand for. It can be your voice to the world. Think of it like a microphone or a broadcasting channel. Your own magazine. You can have specialized photo blogs, so you're like your own online photo album, or your own journal where you just collect interesting thoughts, or your own scrapbook of interesting things. So the question is, to blog or not to blog? That is the question. And I think the first thing to really ask is, have you got something to say? Because if you haven't got something to say, then there's no point in trying to say it. Then, if you have got something to say, then who do you want to reach? This is really valuable to think out. Who are the people? Is it just your sort of friends and family? Is it people in your special interest groups? Or is it a wider audience? The more you can be specific on who it is you're trying to reach with your blog, the more accurately you'll be able to reach them. And finally, the all-important question is, will they want to read what you have to say? And a bit of self-confidence helps here. It helps if you've got a belief in yourself, belief that you've actually got something which is worth saying that people will want to read. But if you've got all these things, then you might ask the next question is, well, why blog? I've already got a platform. I'm using Facebook, or Google Plus, or Pinterest, or Twitter, or Flickr, or LinkedIn, or YouTube, all of these fantastic platforms that are already out there, which I'm sure that some of you, if not most of you, will be using at least one of these already to communicate as your voice to the world. Well, there's one strong argument why you should be blogging as well as using these things, and that's really that those platforms don't belong to you. The content doesn't belong to you. And it's rather like sharecropping. Sharecropping is like when you don't actually own the land, but you're working it and you're basically getting paid a pittance. So all of the contents that you're creating on these various platforms like Facebook or Google Plus, etc., you're working hard to create that content. But at the end of the day, you don't own the platform. And at any time, Facebook or Google Plus or any of these other platforms could decide they're going to start charging for that, or they go out of business, or anything could happen. And all of that content which you've worked hard to share on there would be gone because you don't actually own the platform. Where with blogging, it's actually like you own your own land. So whatever happens, if you're blogging, you will always own that content. And really you should be thinking of all these other platforms like Facebook, Google+, Twitter. They're very important, but they should really be about driving content to your blog, to the stuff which you own. So I've got the arrows pointing from all of these social media platforms to your blog, but really you should be thinking in terms of it as a two-way arrow, because you'll also want to, on your blog, have ways where you can engage with these social media platforms as well. So that's why I think that blogging is important to go alongside all these other things, because it's the one thing which at the end of the day you own the content on that blog, and you can take it with you to another blogging platform if you want, but it'll always be yours. So the first thing to think about is really what kind of a blog you are. I raised some of the different possibilities earlier. Is it going to be a journal? Is it going to be focused on one or two areas? Is it going to be a scrapbook? Is it going to be just for your family and friends? And it might help to look at a few other blogs to help clarify what kind of a blog you want to be. And the place to find some of those other blogs is this website here, Technorati, which is really a directory of blogs. And if you look up there, you've got the top 100 blogs on the menu. And if you click on that and then drill down into some of the categories that might be interesting, you can start to find a few popular examples of blogs in different categories. And I had a look there earlier, and these are some of the blogs which I had a look at. So this one is called SoManyBooksBlog.com. So this is really a blog. It's in the religious category actually, because a lot of these are spiritual books, but it's basically a blog all about book reviews. So this person loves books, obviously. They read books and then they post blogs about the books they've read and what they think of them, and people engage in that and have conversations. Here's another blog, KathyEscobar.com. She's a female pastor, and she blogs on spiritual Christian themes. And her current blog she's got there up there is 10 things we can do, not just pray about, to help eliminate abortions. And that kind of format of lists, 10 things or 10 ideas or any kind of number, is a very popular blog format. Lots of people like reading lists for some reason. So if you're ever stuck for a thing to write about, just jot down a few bullet points, and then you've possibly got a blog post on 5 or 6 things around one theme that you're interested in. So here's another very popular blog, Seth Godin, kind of marketing guru. I'd say he goes beyond just marketing. Very thoughtful guy. He's actually ranked number 18 in Technorati in terms of the most influential blogs, which makes him, I think, one of the top individuals, because if you go on Technorati, you'll find that the top ranking blogs are kind of like wings of the New York Times and so on. They've got masses of resources behind them, whole teams blogging there. So it's quite rare for an individual on their own to get that kind of influence. But Seth Godin, because of who he is and because he's a very interesting guy, always got thoughtful, interesting, thought-provoking blogs, and he blogs every day. And you'll see here his blogs are not very long. So that one there, Anticipation versus Anxiety, it's just 4 short paragraphs and no photographs. So it can be quite simple. It doesn't need to be a kind of long article with photographs, but it can be. A blog can be many things. Here's another one. This is number 19 on Technorati, Kotke.org. This I found interesting because visually it's not very exciting. They don't use photographs very much. The latest post on autism is all text. And then when you read what they're about, it says Kottke.org is one of the longest continuously running blogs on the web, having been in operation for 14.7158 years. You can tell it's a mathematician, probably a computer programmer who's writing this. It's primarily written by Jason Kottke, but it's also blah-de-blah-de-blah. This is interesting. The editorial direction of the site is all over the place, but clusters around a pair of hand-wavy ideas: the liberal arts 2.0 and people are awesome. So it can be quite eclectic, and I think in this case the reason it's so popular is simply that it's been around a long time. But again, it's interesting stuff around those particular themes. Here's another one. This I think is ranked 42 on Technorati, and this is more a kind of political blog. So this guy is an academic, and he's writing thoughts on the Middle East, history and religion, and potentially quite controversial. But I think people respond to him because he's interesting, he's informed, and he's got interesting things to say. So that's quite a variety of different types of blog there. And I guess in trying to decide what kind of a blog you're going to be, we need to come back to this concept of the core, which I mentioned in the very first of the series of webinars. And the more you can actually drill down to the specifics of what it is, what your blog is going to be about, what it's trying to communicate, the more you're likely to attract an audience, because the more people can get hold of what you're about, the more you're likely to appeal to people. So a few ideas on getting to the core is, first of all, can you put it into 6 words? So, for example, building trust across the world's divides, which we have on our website at the moment, that's 6 words. Another possible 6 words for IFC might be inspiring, equipping and connecting change makers. So if you can come up with 6 words like that, which really define what your blog's going to be about, and then perhaps put them on the top of your blog as a masthead to help people understand. And then the second one is it a reflection of your personality? Because I think a blog can get away with being a bit more diverse if the consistent thing is that it's reflecting one person's, one individual's take on the world. So the more you can be authentic and talk about, write about, this is the world as I see it, that will come through. So that's a bit on the different types of blogs and really the core of what your blog will be about. And as I say, go on Technorati, just check out a whole range of different blogs and get a sense of what it is that you would like your blog to be like, and how you want it to sound, and perhaps even how you want it to look visually. When you're writing your blog posts, these are a few thoughts. They should be brief, not long essays. Try and make just a few points, ideally just one. Each post should be either useful or entertaining or challenging to the reader. Possibly all three, but certainly one of those three. Because on the web, it's you've not paid for any of the content there, and the moment you're not useful, entertaining or challenging, it's so easy for somebody to just click a button and they're off to see something else. Make your blog personal and conversational, so that the reader feels they're actually relating to a real person, not just to a formula. And something you can do is link to other useful resources. This is the art of curation. So as you're going around the web and you're finding interesting video clips or photographs or websites, just as you might do on Facebook, those also can be part of your blog. Bring them in, link to them, make some comment. So now we're coming on to a bit more of the how, the actual practicalities. And I think a question, if you're starting out, would be which blogging platform to use. Now there are several which you could use, but I'm basically going to focus on two, which is Blogger, which is owned by Google, and WordPress. And WordPress comes in two flavors as well. One is a kind of completely hosted version, which is WordPress.com. And any of these links, by the way, I've got them all in a separate piece of paper, which I'll put up on the Communications Facebook page, and it will also be sent out to you. So you don't need to write down any of these URLs. You'll get all these resources independently. But WordPress you can have either as a hosted version, which is like you sign up to an account on WordPress.com. You don't need to do anything beyond that other than fill in, start writing your blog. Or you can actually take the WordPress software and install it on your own web space. And we'll come on to this in a minute. I'll just start with blogger.com. When I started looking at blogs 5 years ago, I would have said go with WordPress, because at that stage WordPress had more flexibility. There were more things you could do to customize your blog with WordPress. Having looked again at blogger.com, it's come a long way, and I would say if you're the kind of person who doesn't particularly want to do too much in the way of customizing your blog, playing about with the technical side, if you mainly just want to start writing, putting pictures up, with doing a minimum of customization and not having to worry too much about all the technical side, I would say go with blogger.com. It's very, very simple to use. It's made ease of use their kind of primary virtue. So for beginners who basically want to just focus on writing, go with blogger.com. Check it out. You can sign up with an account. I'll show you shortly some links to a video tutorial which will walk you through the process of actually setting up your blogger.com platform. If on the other hand you're more interested in all the different ways you can customize a blog, WordPress is a very powerful platform. It's more than just a blogging platform. It's actually a full-blown platform for creating websites. Rather like ifc.org is based on Drupal, WordPress can do many of the same kind of things that Drupal can. But that functionality really only comes if you actually install it yourself on your own web server. I wouldn't recommend it going with the WordPress.com hosted version, because you're really quite limited in what you can do on there, and any extras you actually have to pay quite a bit of money for. So my advice would be, if you want simplicity, go with blogger.com. If you want to really get your hands on the system, tweak it, play about with the masses of different themes and plugins that you can use, customize it to your heart's content, then install WordPress.com on your own web server. And again, there's lots of tutorials which can show you how to do that. It's really quite easy once you follow some fairly simple instructions. I mentioned the lots of free tutorials. If you just Google on YouTube blogger tutorials, you'll find a whole range of things. This is one I looked at by a guy called Jared Broker, which looks pretty good. He's got a series of 8 different video tutorials. I'd certainly recommend that. I'll put the link in the PDF which you'll receive. Work through those tutorials. It'll show you how to set it up right from the very beginnings of creating your Google account, then how to customize it, how to create your sort of banner headlines and so on. Follow that. I'm not going to try and give you instructions on how to do it myself. Just follow these tutorials. WordPress, there's actually masses and masses of WordPress tutorials, and this website here, udemy.com, is a really great resource. There's a massive different courses there. Some you have to pay for, some are free. If you see here, you can filter, you can type in over here your keyword. I typed in WordPress, but then you can filter by price, so filter by free, and then you see all these different WordPress courses here. And this one here looks interesting. It's got 274 people have enrolled, given it a pretty high rating, those who've done it. Another one here gets high ratings from 164 students. Check them out, and I think between these different things, and also use YouTube as well, look for WordPress tutorials, you'll find there's a lot of information in a fairly easily digestible form on how to set up WordPress, either as WordPress.com, the hosted version, or alternatively installing it on your own web server. So that's really that's the end. I'll go back to the here we are. Let's get back. So that's the sort of basics that I've put together so far. If you had any questions earlier, I couldn't see them because all I could see was my PowerPoint thing. So I'll just have a look through in the chat box now. So could you see the PowerPoint? Oh yes, you could see it. Good. So I see Babs put up his favourite blog. The Cognitive Edge. Dave Snowden's company. Chris Breitenberg's blog on Blogger, with me walk at blogspot.com. Janvier saying hi. So Chris, you're asking, why do blogs fail? That's a good question. I think there are a lot of blogs which do fail, including I've had a few blogs myself which failed. It's actually quite hard to get an audience on a blog. This is not surprising. You're basically dealing with a very unbelievably large number of other blogs and websites out there. So getting an audience can be quite hard. I would say if you've got already an audience on social media, so if you've got people who are following you on Facebook or Twitter or any other social media platform, that's a great place to start engaging those people who already know you. Bring them to your blog site. But then the other thing I would say is keep it regular. So have a regular rhythm for blogging. If you commit to, for example, writing one blog a week, then you're much more likely to build up an audience. But if people come to a blog and they see there's nothing being posted there for a couple of months, then they'll assume that the blog is dead and they won't come back. Does that answer your question, Chris? Yeah. And other people may have thoughts also about why blogs fail. One of the big things that's changed actually since I first started looking at blogs is the ease now of integration with social media. And certainly if you're using WordPress or Blogger, by default now they come with quite good social media integration. So you can link in with all your Facebook accounts. You can make it easy for people to like and to share on Facebook. And that all helps to actually build traffic to your blog. So any other questions? Okay. So Charlotte's asking, can people get email updates with your latest blog entry? Yes, they certainly can. And again, Blogger and WordPress make it very easy for people to subscribe by getting emails. There's also a thing called an RSS feed, which is for people who follow a lot of blogs. An RSS feed helps them to read the blogs in a thing like Google Reader, and there's various other bits of software which allow you to do this. Anton is saying, if you create a blog on a separate platform, not Facebook, it is difficult to attract the audience constantly. How to solve this? Anton, I think you really have to keep Facebook and all your other social media audiences engaged by, whenever you post something on the blog, post something on Facebook to let them know that you put something on your blog. Bav's asking how my blog's doing. It's good. It's not huge audience, but it is attracting an audience now, and the social media thing certainly helps. As you'll see if you go onto my blog, which is discovertheother.com.au. I'll just type that in. You'll find I've got social media integration all over that. Bav's saying I use BusyBee, that sends the whole blog to my email, so I don't actually need to go to the blog site. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting plugins you can get, and I think certainly with Blogspot, they make it quite easy for you to update your blog via your iPad or your iPhone or your Android phone. Janvier is asking, he said, sorry I missed the first part, how can blogging support storytelling? It's a slightly different format to a newspaper report, Janvier. It's more informal. So a blog is more conversational. So you can think of your blog as being your chance to have a conversation with the way you see the world with anybody who you want to. So whatever it is that you're interested in, that would be the starting place to blog. So if you're interested in politics, then blog about politics. If you're interested in rabbits, then blog about rabbits. Bav, I don't understand MEK question mark, question mark, question mark. You have to explain that one. Meria is asking, what is a plugin? And Bav's, I think, answering that. Little extras that you add to your browsers. Yes, basically. So they're little bits of computer program. It's more applicable to WordPress. And really this applies to if you're going to use WordPress as something, as a bit of software on your own hosted website, then this is where the plugins really come into their own. If you're just using WordPress as a hosted website on WordPress.com, then you're much more limited in the things you can do with it. But my blog stroke website, discovertheother.com, that's a WordPress which I've got on my own hosting server. So you pay nothing for the software, and I'm paying about $100 a year for my web hosting, which is fairly basic. Charlotte's asking, is tagging useful? Yes, tagging is very useful. It's useful also for search engines to find it works in two ways, tagging. One is it helps find related posts within your own blog. So again, this is a WordPress plugin which I use, which has related posts. So at the bottom of every of my blog articles, there's automatically 4 other blogs I put there, which are related to those blogs according to the tags. But it's also, if you want to tag things with trust building or peacemaking, it helps the search engines like Google to know that that's what the blog is about. Marielle is asking, does IFC have official blogs? Not really yet. We did one for the environment, which is actually WordPress.com hosted blog, fairly basic. It's something we want to really get into much more once we're on the new ifc.org redesigned website. So starting from next year, we'll be looking much more at official IFC hosted blogs. Chris has got an interesting example of an NGO blog, which is charitywater.org /blog. Yeah, good. I'll check that out. Let me see any questions that I've missed. I'm just going to scroll up. Okay, Janvier is asking, how can you avoid publicity intrusion in your blog? I don't quite know what you mean by publicity intrusion. A blog is inevitably a public website, so it's there for anybody in the world to see. If you're talking about spam comments, because one of the core things about blog is the ability for people to comment on what you write and have conversations, and blogs do attract a lot of spam. Blogger.com I think has fairly good spam filtering built in, as does the hosted version of WordPress.com. But it is always going to be an issue because there will be people trying to basically get links, advertising links to their products on your blog. Jambi is asking, so much publicity appears on blog. Are you talking about advertising, Janvier? Yes, okay. Well, a lot of websites actually generate income through advertising. So you have the option, if you want to accept advertising and get paid for that. And obviously, the more traffic you get coming to your blog, the more money you'll get paid. So a lot of websites deliberately want adverts. Now, WordPress.com and the hosted version, the free version, I think also has advertising. That's how they make their money. Blogger.com has the option to be without advertising, and it's still free. Or if you want, you can integrate it with Google, Google's AdWords and get paid for advertisements that appear there. But really, this is something which you do have complete control of, unless you're on WordPress.com or one of the other free things which only support themselves through advertising. So Janvier is asking, look at my blog if you want to make comments. So that's jankuru.blogspot.co.uk. Okay, thank you. We'll check that out. And Chris is asking, before you wrap up, can you give a quick recap of the main points? Okay, I'll try and recap. So first of all, the first point is understanding what a blog is. And a blog can be many things. But the clearer you are on what you want it to be before you start, the more chance your blog will be successful. So think, who is it you're trying to reach? What are you trying to say? And is this blog going to be a real reflection of your own personality, your take on the world? Because the more it sounds like there's a real person behind there, the more people will want to engage in that. And then the point about why it's important to own your content and not just rely on things like Facebook, Google+, Twitter as your voice in the world. Because at the end of the day, you don't own those platforms and you don't know what's going to happen to them in the future. Whereas a blog, you actually own the content. Even if it's on blogger.com, you own the actual content on there, and you can download all the content. Google makes it quite easy for you to export that if you ever want to shift to another self-hosted blogging platform. And then we looked a bit at some examples of different blogs, and this is always useful to do to get some idea of the kind of blogs you would like to be, both in terms of the themes but also the appearance. And then we looked at the two main blogging platforms, which are blogger.com and WordPress, and the pros and cons of each platform. And as I say, my strong recommendation is if you don't want to get too technical, go with blogger.com. If you don't mind getting technical and being able to customize your blog and do a lot more stuff with it, then I'd recommend getting your own web hosting service and then installing WordPress on that. And most web hosting services make it very easy to install. They actually have a program which installs WordPress for you with literally just the click of a button. That was certainly the case with me. So I basically signed up for web hosting and then clicked a button and I got my WordPress installed. And then I went out and looked for a nice theme for my website and installed that. But you do need to learn a bit if you're going to do that, and this is where these courses like udemy.com or the various tutorials on YouTube really come in useful to actually learn how to do it. And even with a basic thing like blogger.com, it's worth looking through some of those video tutorials and learning how to make the most of it. So Anton's asking, will we have a seminar on video blogging? That's a good question, Charlotte. I'm going to hand that one over to you. Are we going to have a seminar on video blogging, Charlotte? Is she still there? Yes, she's still there. Yes, she says, sounds good. Okay. Mariel is asking, are we done? I think so, unless there's any more questions that you want to ask. But my input is basically finished and I'm just responding to questions now. Yep, 45 minutes, that's pretty cool. It's getting towards my bedtime anyway. Okay. I'll think about it, Bav. Cheers. Well, good night and good day, and have a great time. And see you all on the next webinar in a month's time. Bye.